statistics is this. Collecting, organizing, analyzing, and interpreting data. So data is what we actually collect. Data is some sort of measurement or it's a characteristic of some person, some event, some object that we actually want to look at and study. And there's 4 activities concerned with statistics. The world of statistics is to collect some data, organize it in some meaningful way, put it into tables, put it into Excel, put it into some sort of computer spreadsheet, make records, so you can work with it. Maybe make a couple of graphs and charts, analyze the data. The next step, analyze the data, and then interpreting the data. So let's talk about each one really quickly, okay? Well, first of all, in our class, in this particular semester, we will spend almost all of our time right here, okay? Organizing, analyzing, and interpreting data. Now this is because we're going to be given data in the back of the textbook or in the problems, or I'm going to give you some data, but we spend most of our time trying to figure out how to do those last 3 things. In the real world, which do you think of those tasks is the hardest to do?
Organizing,
Collecting the data. Collecting the data is a huge pain in the neck. It's very costly, it's time consuming, it's expensive, it takes a lot of people, okay? I'll give you a perfect example, okay, and I'm not trying to be egotistical about this, but when we were doing the marketing research company and I was telling you about before, we were fortunate to have very good clients, and one of my clients was IBM, and IBM actually used to call us up and we'd say we're going to maybe introduce this new line of computers, and typically the people we did and I dealt with would be not home computer users or buyers, but maybe people that bought computers for their companies. In other words, the IT manager, the IT executive vice president or something. So IBM would come up with a new line or new capabilities, and they say, well, we'd like to do this, and they would want to advertise it. They'd want us to get some sense of whether it met the people's needs, and would go forward with it. And one of the problems that IBM has is they say, okay, well, we need to go talk to some people who are going to potentially be our customers. We need to collect some data from those people. We need to chat with them. And so they were calling and say, okay, well, we'd like you to do this project, and the project is that we want you to talk to people who buy computers for their company, and we'd like you to talk to people that are in companies, between $5 and $15 million in gross revenue a year, 15 to 50 million, and maybe 50 million, or maybe even 100 million to $1 billion. And they might say, that's big companies, medium-sized companies, and little companies, and we'd like you to do this. And we need you to do it all around the world because, we're going to sell them all around the world, okay? So a project that I might have been involved in was, you go to United States cities, you go to New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, okay, and then you fly to Europe and you go to, European cities because Europe is obviously a big market. You go to several big cities in Europe, okay, then you go to South America and you go to several cities in South America because Brazil is a huge market. And then, of course, Asia is a huge market, okay? Tokyo is different than China, but very big market, okay? And I have to admit, we, most of the time, did not go into Russia and, kind of Eastern Europe. The market really wasn't that developed, okay? But the point I'm trying to make is that you do all of that stuff to do what? Collect the data. You come home and you got, a whole bunch of pads and papers and, surveys and interviews, and you got, and you sit there and you organize and you analyze and you interpret the data. This takes 95% of the 90% of the time and energy, okay, and it's really expensive to collect data. Data is expensive. When the pharmaceutical companies come up with a new drug and they actually want to test that new drug, and they say, I've got something that is going to actually help the people who have diabetes too. And they say, well, man, I got to find some people who have diabetes too, and I'm going to test it. It's expensive to find those people, to control the test, to organize the test, to monitor and stuff, and that's all collecting the data. And then, of course, we have you know, a whole bunch of people who are smart, and a lot of software now will help you analyze data, computers and stuff. So this part is, you know, organizing and analyzing pretty easy. Now, what's the difference between analyzing and interpreting? What's the difference between analyzing and interpreting? Yeah, Joe.
Numbers and figuring out what the numbers mean.
Yeah, I think Joe has the right idea, okay? I go out and collect a bunch of data. I talk to, let's say, 200 people around the world who are going to buy computers maybe from IBM. Now, that's not everybody in the world that's going to buy a computer from IBM. I get to talk to maybe 200. You know that slice the guy was talking about? That's my little slice. That's my macroscope that I'm trying to say. Do these 200 people give me some insight into what everybody else is going to do? Do the people in the diabetes 2, type 2 test give me some insight into how everybody that has diabetes type 2 is going to react to this particular medication? So, big jump between analyzing. I can collect a bunch of data and say, what does the data look like? Describe the data to me, okay? And you can do that, okay? This is not a hard problem. But Joe's correct. Interpreting the data and saying, I have good enough data, I have enough experience, I have enough confidence that says that data means that the whole population, the whole view is this. That make sense to everybody? And that's, of course, people making decisions, and they make like lots of money, the people that successfully make those decisions that go from here to here, right? Because that's where the big money is. So the difference between analyzing and interpreting. Now, if you looked at the Blackboard site, you will probably see, and I mentioned at the beginning of the class, that there's no final exam, there's a final project. What do you think the final project? Go out, collect a bunch of data, or find a bunch of data, okay? Organize it, analyze it, and tell me what it means. So this is day one, okay? The last class, when we hand in this project, will be a report that says, oh, I can do this. And we're going to talk about some of the things I expect in the middle here. I mean, there are techniques, but that's what the final project is, okay? And every semester, the toughest part is collecting the data because people have a hard time trying to think about what I should collect. But we'll talk about that more, but that's the final project, okay? All right, so that's what statistics is, okay? We've got to talk about some terminology, and terminology is important because I actually don't think that this class, really the arithmetic is not that hard. What's scary is knowing the words. If you know what I'm talking about and the book's talking about,